Welcome to Season 4 of the Bird Joy Podcast. Your hosts, Dexter Patterson and Jason Hall, are back with more birds, more bird joy, and plenty of laughs along the way. Each episode brings new stories, fun conversations, and a whole flock of good vibes. We're happy you're here. We really miss the homies, and we hope you enjoy this season. You ready? Let's go.
Welcome back to the Bird Joy Podcast, homies. We are so happy to be back with you today. We have a special guest for y'all today. Today's guest brings together science, style, conservation, and storytelling in one of the most unique ways we have ever encountered. Divya Anantharaman is New York City's premier licensed professional taxidermist and an award-winning artist whose work spans museums, galleries, fashion, and natural history spaces. Her specialties include birds, small mammals, and anatomic anomalies, and her work blends the precision of scientific presentation with the emotional and symbolic language of art. Divya left the corporate fashion industry to pursue her love of natural history as the resident taxidermist at the Morbid Anatomy Museum. Since then, she has built a global following, creating taxidermy, skeletal, entomology displays, along with jewelry and wearable art for those who find wonder in the natural world. She was recently featured in the award-winning documentary Rearranging Skin, is the co-author of Stuffed Animals, A Modern Guide to Taxidermy, and works part-time in the historic George Dante Studio, preserving museum collections and exhibits for future generations. Her clients include Natural History Museums, Tiffany & Co. Hey, now that's big time. Columbia University, Neil Patrick Harris, and David Burtka. Divya works with organizations like the NYC Bird Alliance and NYC Plover Project. She runs a rescue and ensures all animal materials are legally and sustainably obtained. At the heart of her work is a deep curiosity about the human-animal relationship, conservation, and enchantment with nature, and what happens when science becomes art. We are honored to welcome Divya to the Bird Joy Podcast. What's up, homie?
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is fantastic. Jason, when you told me we had a taxidermist, I was like, for real? I was like, you serious? And then when I went to Divya's social media and her website, I was like, whoa, we are in the presence of something pretty special today, folks. Divya, how are you feeling today? Where are you joining us from?
Hi, I'm feeling great. It's always a pleasure to talk to fellow bird people. And I'm joining from Brooklyn, New York City.
Whoop, whoop.
Let's go, New York.
We got a lot of New York homies out there. We've had a few on the podcast. So,
Yeah. Cool.
You covered in snow up there, too, like I am here in Philly?
Yeah, it's still coming down. It's still it's going steady, nice, and everything has that thick white blanket over it.
I know. My son was just out there getting pelted in the face by freezing rain. And I'm like, buddy. Divya, you started your career in the corporate fashion industry. Can you take us back to that moment when you were like, nah, this ain't it, and you needed to leave that world and pursue natural history and taxidermy? That's just such an awesome pivot. Tell us about that.
Thank you. Yeah. So, as a kid and even now as an adult, I have always loved art and I've always loved making things with my hands. I'm just like a person, my hands need to be busy, but I also love nature and animals. Fashion is something I got into because with all of those loves, I love clothing, I love aesthetics, and I love how transformative a garment can be. It's really amazing. We all have even if someone doesn't consider themselves a fashion person, we all have that t-shirt we put on that makes us feel really good, that we're like, man, I wish this came in a million colors. I wish I had 20 of these, but only one, so everyone has something that makes them feel good and it transforms you. So I love that fashion could do that. And in the fashion world, I worked in leather goods and shoes. So it was working with, it's working with animal products because leather is an animal product. But something that really drew me to leather was how, this is a once living animal, but when you wear it as a shoe or as a jacket, it protects you and it lasts forever. You're meant to take care of this. It lasts forever. You can pass it down. I was really into vintage and thrifting when I was younger. So a lot of the things I own are passed down and formally done. So the fact that something could live multiple lives, that's what really got me into working with leather as a material, but also as something that's a bit more than a material because it comes from something that was formerly alive. So That's what got into that. My mom was a biology teacher, so she was a science influence in my life. And she had a lot of teaching specimens. So when I was young, I would see these teaching specimens, whether they were bird study skins or, butterflies in cases or like a hearts or brains in jars, all of the things that a biology teacher would have in their in a classroom. But I saw them as more than just like a specimen. I saw them as these little works of art because I knew someone had to make them, and I asked her, I was like, how was this stuff done? Like, what did they do? And it's like, oh, someone prepared this. I saw more of the empathy and the heart behind it than just the purely like sterile scientific aspect behind it. So I've always had that interest in animals in that way too, and like preservation in that way too. But when I was looking up taxidermy as I was growing up and learning what that would be, the things I saw weren't really my vibe. So they were more of like serving more of a commercial interest or more of the interest of like putting a deer head on a wall, and that is a whole other world. And there's a world of that's really, that's very passionate about conservation and stewardship of the land and everything like that. But I grew up in Miami and I live in New York City now. I'm a city person, and cities have lots of amazing nature. People don't have room for deer heads on the wall here. And the animals I connected to were these small birds, small mammals, and just the little things that kind of go overlooked in our cities. So that's where the interest came from. So because I didn't see anyone doing that, I was like, I guess my taxidermy thing will be my little hobby while I pursue a career and pay my bills in fashion.
Sure.
So yes, that's kind of like a long-winded way of getting to where I was, but that's how I got into fashion. And I went to school for that, worked in that field from from internship to being a director, and did that for quite some time, for about, over 10 years I was doing that. And the more I worked and the more I progressed in the fashion industry, the more I realized it wasn't about the things in fashion that I loved. Like, I like when people put something on and feel good or feel powerful or feel changed or just feel transformed in some way. But the mainstream fashion world is about selling you as much stuff as possible. And honestly, it's also about making you feel bad about yourself so you buy more stuff. And that sucks. Like, that's not nice, but it's also how capitalism, yay. No, that's just how it's built on that. If it was built on making people feel good, it would be a lot less profitable, I guess. The more I saw that, the more I saw there were so many things that were being made. When I started in fashion, we had 4 to 6 seasons a year that we were designing for. When I left, we had over 20 to 25 seasons. Whoa. That means 20 to 25 times that items were being delivered to a store, 20 to 25 collections that I was designing per year, which designing stuff is fun, but that also means you're making the stuff too. And it was just unsustainable. From a personal standpoint, I was working like crazy hours, also from that professional and personal standpoint, and from the standpoint of, I don't believe in this much stuff being made. And
it's a lot of waste.
It's a lot of waste. And the animal and nature lover in me was like, why are we wasting for this? This is a completely avoidable type of waste, and no one's really feeling good about this. So I slowly started to invest more in my taxidermy hobby, thinking, what if I could make it a career? Let's kind of put this stuff out there. And in like 2013, 2012, put some stuff on social media, the early Instagram and Facebook days. So I started putting stuff out there with that, started meeting people in New York City. So the Morbid Anatomy Museum was a place that had a lot of different events, and they offered to host a taxidermy event with me, which was really nice. That's also when I started to look for ways I could invest in learning taxidermy while still having a job in fashion. So a lot of so it was sort of like a slow merging of those two, or slowly like leaving one world while entering another.
That's
I love that so much.
This feels like a movie to me. Like, I don't know, like I just hanging out with my wife and daughter and watching movies about New York fashion and Meryl Streep, Glenn Close in a couple of movies, and I'm like, man, this would have been a much better plot line.
Right? Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? Well, this would have been,
whoever's out there,
like, please, somebody get the rights. Call up the homie, because this sounds great, and I'm so curious about this. So, was there you talked about like regularly realizing like this is a lot of waste, 20 to 25 seasons a year, this is all being delivered. Like, Was there a moment that you can remember where you're like, no, that's it. I gotta be done. And then once you started making that transition, how did your emotions change? How did your mental health change at all? Like when you started doing the thing that you felt more connected to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't know if there was one specific moment. I think like there were a lot of times for my job, there was a lot of travel involved, which was really amazing. You know, I was doing this in my 20s, so you know, it was an amazing opportunity to travel and see a lot of different places and, you know, see the world, and really cool to see something that you drew on the computer or on paper. Mostly it was on the computer, but something that you drew turn into a 3-dimensional object, and then see people on the subway wearing that and walking around with it.
That's cool, man.
That was really cool. So that was something I really enjoyed. But with that travel, I would go a lot to the factories to go and work with the production team to help ensure everything was made well. And a lot of these factories are in Asia. And so like there was, even with like translation and everything, there's a bit of a communication barrier. So you have to be really patient. And listen, English is my own second language. So for someone whose language is completely different from English, speaking it, I'm just like, all right, cool. We'll like just work slowly. We'll work through this and make sure this, you know, we'll make sure that like the pink I'm talking about is the same pink that you're talking about, and we'll have to go back and forth. But I guess like one of the like defining moments of me wanting to leave wasn't so much related to waste, but related to the humanity of people, because I worked with like the head of the company, like one of the companies I was working for. I was like pretty much like right hand to the head. And he just blew up and yelled at someone at the factory because they just didn't understand the stitch color that he wanted. And I was like, you're like a grown man with like over a 6-figure salary and you're yelling at someone about a piece of string that's the wrong color. Like, come on. Like, this isn't what grown-ups do. This isn't what adults do. This isn't what humans do. You know, I don't know. Like, I could see a little kid having a tantrum like that because they might not have the executive functions fully formed yet. You know, we're adults. And there's such a power dynamic at play as well when you're someone in a senior position to that. So that really just soured me to it. You know, I was like, I know I'm in this because I have to. I'm not independently wealthy. I've got to pay my bills, and this is what's paying my bills right now. So I can't just be like, I quit, like movie style. So I was like, I've got.
I mean, we're gonna have to write that in. We're gonna have to take some creative liberty when we get the script
just
written.
Like
Makes note on script.
Yeah.
You know?
There was no that was the reason why it was like a slow transition out.
Sure.
Because like it was really it couldn't have been, you know, it'd be awesome if it was dramatic, but there was no like realistic way for it to be dramatic. But that moment really made me realize, you know, like the things I love about fashion weren't going to be in the corporate world. They were going to be in, I guess, in something independent or just not at all. But it really just soured me to all of that. And I said, I've got to find a way out, and I've got to find a way to, you know, work this hard, but work towards something that makes people happy and that gets people connected to something greater than themselves. And yeah.
That warms my heart. Another thing that warmed my heart was you talking about how your mom, as the biologist, exposed you to these skins and butterflies and cases at a young age. And I always tell people, the kids, right? Having the little kids that can see something, and especially in a birding space, maybe it sparks something in them bigger than just being outside and looking at birds. Maybe they say, I could be a wildlife ecologist. I could be this. I could be that. And it sounds like at an early age, you were exposed to that wonder. And I just think that is really fantastic. And to see that put in you early, and you finding that connection to your passion for art at such a young age, that is powerful. And that's why I always tell people, like, we need to create these opportunities for these young folks to do these amazing things, to be in these amazing spaces, to be in nature, to be exposed to science and the wonder of science, because it could change their life, and it could change it early. So that just really kind of warmed my heart. I do want to talk a little bit about your transition to the Morbid Anatomy Museum and how that space, once you got there, once you made that transition, start to shape your identity in that space, both as an artist and a scientist. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So at the Morbid Anatomy Museum, that was that was the first venue that I started teaching taxidermy classes at. And I started teaching taxidermy classes when I became more comfortable in like as a taxidermist and more established. So that was like when I was still in fashion and still learning and still freelancing, I would go to taxidermy competitions and I would try to learn at those things. And, once I started winning, that was when I was like, okay, I think now I can do this as a job, because now it means I'm good or good enough to do this. Morbid Anatomy was the first venue that I would teach classes at. And they're a museum of not just taxidermy, but they do all sorts of things that are kind of like obscure art, science, life, death, things at the intersections of all of that. And so they would have, like, in addition to taxidermy, they have things about, like, they have lectures about historic cemeteries or workshops on Victorian hair art, or, it runs like such an interesting variety of things. So being around that and being around other people who had their own interests, that they were, these own like kind of very niche passions that were really specific. It was really nice because you're around people who are passionate, which is always great. That was great. And having a venue to teach out of was really, is really wonderful too, especially in a place like New York City. Having a place to gather is so important. And so, you can have a lot of community online, which I do, which is really great, but having a place in person, something tangible, was really, really wonderful. And teaching is really a lot of how I made that transition from fashion into working full-time as a taxidermist and opening my own business and everything. Because when I first started teaching, I was still working in fashion. So we were like, all right, let's do like a couple classes a year. And there was such a demand for it that they were like, would you feel about doing a couple more classes per year? And I was like, sure. And then it turned into once a month. And at that point, I was burning the candle at both ends. So my mental health was fried. So I was like, working. Yeah, I was just always working and not sleeping. So I was like, I really have to make a choice. So that's when I was like, all right, let me do my budgeting and see if these classes do fill, like if these once a month classes do fill for a year, then I'll stop my fashion. Then I'll like slowly pull out of my fashion jobs little by little. And I'll slowly start putting more of my work out there and getting other income streams that aren't just the classes there, but things that are for my own business, like doing commissions and selling artwork or working, like selling at art markets and things like that. Yeah.
Did you have any early mentors as you were making that transition? Just curious, did anybody kind of support you early on there?
So early on, I was self-taught. I used a lot of books and videos, and I was on eBay all the time looking for the old-timey taxidermy books, because in that like old-timey like Victorian era, that's when they would do a lot of the small birds and mice and the things that I'm most passionate about and interested in. When I would go to the competitions, that was when, in addition to showing my work, that was also an opportunity for me to try and meet mentors and try and meet people. A lot of the field is very, very homogenous. So it was kind of, it feels kind of weird. It's a lot like in the birding world. Sometimes you go to these rooms and you're like, oh, I'm the only like person of color here. I'm the only queer person here. I'm the only woman here. I'm the only like everything, like what's going on. So it was a little like, you're a little wary at first. And some of the associations were definitely a lot more welcoming than others. So, New England, New Jersey, and New York were much more welcoming. So I kind of stuck there. So as far as like, I never had like full-time, like I didn't have like a one single like full-time mentor. It was more of like learning from a network of people who are like, you know what, like this is different, or this is kind of like, this is not my thing, but I'm into it, and seeing that. And then George Dante, whose studio I work part-time at, has been like a really, really wonderful mentor, a boss, a friend, employer, like all of that. He's been really, I would say, like probably the most constant mentor that I've had. But that came like years later, not so much in the beginning. In the beginning, it was sort of flying solo and seeing what's what, and honestly just navigating a space that is historically and currently kind of unwelcoming to people who are different. Yeah.
Wow. These are the stories we love to tell so much on this podcast. So I'm ready to like jump out this seat and run around the house and come back and talk to y'all in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, totally. You do it. Yeah.
You got the zoomies, Dex? You got the bird joy zoomies?
I got the bird joy zoomies right now. Like nice. I'm like fired up, like just like this is so good. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's just incredible because there's so many folks that come on here that have taken different paths and a lot of self-taught language, a lot of I'm going to take the initiative myself and essentially build your own community. Right? You found the places that welcomed you. You stayed away from the ones that didn't. You found kindred souls and minds, and now you're probably out there able to with the teaching too. It's so interesting because I always found myself when I tutored in college, I would tutor like for biochem class sometimes or like something else, to the younger folks, and it's not like I understood it that well. But when I taught it to somebody else, it was so much, I really knew it, So it's just so interesting to hear you say those paths of like building a community yourself, learning yourself, and then teaching others, right? It's such a nice, comprehensive way. We're getting to the parts of the questions now that I really want to get to because your work occupies this space in my brain, right? Connecting science, conservation, art. How do you balance, because you look at some of your pieces and when I look at them as a scientist or a birder, like I don't see a pure scientific piece. I really don't. And like me, I just never grew up in art or anything. So like when things like move me like that, I'm like, man, why? I know it's a flamingo, but why do I feel like this? So like, how do you balance that? Like getting something scientifically accurate and the symbolism, and then like what emotional story do you hope people are like, how do you do that? Cause like that's the part to me that I'm so excited to talk to you about.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, at first, it really means a lot to me that you'd share that and that you'd feel that way. So thank you for that. That's amazing. Thank you. I mean, I think that's the beauty of art coming together with science, because I think both art and science are actually a lot more similar than either community wants to admit. I think the artists are like, no, we're pure art. The scientists are like, no, we're pure science. And then there's people like me who are like, both of you are wrong. Both of you are actually the same.
Both of you are wrong.
Both of you are wrong, but also right. But whatever. Because both of them, like art and science, are both just ways of making sense of the world, right? And in both of them, like the first step is observation, and then how you process that observation and what you do with those observations is what I think maybe where some of the similarities come from and the differences come from too. And the thing that's specific to taxidermy, and I think that is what also fascinates me, is that there's a preciseness to it. There's a preciseness of like, all right, if I am, if I'm like mounting an owl or mounting a crow or mounting a, whatever, a flamingo or anything like that, it's like, all right, what size is this eye? What's the color of the eye? What's the, was this a bird that was in winter plumage and summer plumage, spring? Like, what does the client want? Are they wanting something sitting on a branch? Do they want me to go nuts with it and do something kind of jazzy? What do they want? And then there's like something in between all of that where you have your, kind of like your artist's hand that has to come through. And a lot of it for me is I want the animal to feel approachable or relatable or like draw someone in while not looking like a total caricature, So kind of towing that line and being a little kind of going to that place of surrealism, because so much of taxidermy is also improvising. Most of the animals I work with have some kind of damage or some kind of imperfection on them because they're all found deceased. There's nothing, it's very rare that something is found deceased and in like perfect plumage or doesn't have like some part that's damaged or missing or rotted off or, something like that's not less than ideal. So there's also navigating that. And so with that, you kind of have to know how to hide. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to turn you this way so I can hide that part that has no feathers on it, or I can fluff this up some more because that will distract the eye from what's going on there and kind of move that around. So I feel like in studying animals and seeing how how fluid they are and how much they move, and they're always shifting, especially birds. Like you can look at a bird one moment and it's like the sleekest, tiniest thing ever. And then the next moment it's like Borb, so seeing how plastic and fluid, they're so fluid. So like, sometimes yeah. And it's like within the span of like 5 minutes, this thing will transform and change. And all of that is possible through taxidermy too. So it's also finding, it's also knowing the animal can do that, finding that and seeing how, seeing how like plastic or how you can maybe manipulate's not the best word because that sounds so harsh, but how you can like work with them and see what they'll become. That helps too. And then wanting someone to have it feel warm, wanting someone to feel connected to it. I think in taxidermy, there's this the tradition of taxidermy is tied a lot to like extraction and colonialism and the domination over nature. Whereas this is more about, like, I think myself and other artists who are working in the field now, we're much more connected to the animal as our equals, as our kin, as our friends, as beings that we want to connect to and honor and admire and help others connect to and honor and admire. And so you can't do that if something doesn't look approachable and soft and natural and, nice. It's not meant to look domineering or something, I don't know. Like, I think that it's like an aesthetic choice, but there's also, I think aesthetics also come from the intention that you're working with as well.
It sounds like, and I, you tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but it sounds like you're constantly aware of the scientific accuracy, but it varies when you start to shift into that more presentation mode. Like, it sounds like sometimes you may know at the beginning exactly what you want to do, but sometimes it may take towards the end where you're like, oh, that's what I want to present. Is that true? Is that how you would describe it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because it was a question that we had just when you made that switch of like, all right, this first module, I'm just going to get it in the right shape, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, put the skin here, put the, the eyeballs blue, make sure the eyeballs blue. But then if anyone were to go to your website, gothamtaxidermy.com, they would see it's way more than that. So it's just interesting to hear you talk through that.
Yeah, thank you. That's also the fun part when I'm teaching too, because everyone, in a class, everyone works with the same animals, but they all look very different after. And it's just so cool to see, the versatility of the craft and of the animals themselves too.
I got to get to one of these classes.
Beautiful. You mentioned earlier, like when you first started, you wanted to go back to like some of those older books, like the Victorian era, and specifically because it had the small birds and mice that really spark your interest. This is the Bird Joy podcast, and birds are one of your specialties. What drew you to birds creatively and emotionally?
Oh my goodness. So birds are the best. Obviously, that's why we're all drawn to them. So there's that.
Facts.
Objectively, they are just the best. Like, we know this here. What drew me to them? So I grew up in Miami and I moved to New York City for college. So I've always been a big city person, and birds are something that exists in both of these cities, but they exist in every city, and birds are everywhere. And I think that is what drew me to them, is that no matter how concrete, how much concrete and steel and buildings and, whatever I lived around, I could always find a bird. You could always see that. And they're so adaptable. I think the first time in Miami, I was pretty young, but I know I got more into birding in New York City. And so I think the first time I saw, I think it was a cedar. Yeah, it was a cedar waxwing. I think that was the first non-pigeon bird I saw I saw it by Wall Street. And I was just like, whoa, what is this? This is, I love my pigeons. Don't get me wrong. I love my pigeons and my sparrows and my starlings. They're great. But I was like, who is this? Like, you are just hopping around in this random little park by Wall Street. What's going on? Like, wow, I was like, this must be something important. I was like so convinced that I was like, I'm sure I discovered something. I had the confidence of like, of a Victorian white man, like, just like, I'm sure I discovered something.
Call the totally Smithsonian immediately.
Yeah, call them immediately. And I followed this bird around, and this is I was in college. I think I was on break, or it was like one of those like weeks between classes. So I was just like, walking around, following this bird. People are like going to the office and stuff. And I was just like going around trying to see where this bird was going, because I didn't have binoculars or anything. So I was like, I got to see this. Like, I'm just following this being. And, just hanging out in this, it was like a little pocket park, it was between, between all of the buildings. And then, later on when I got home, I was, researching, and it was like, oh, we're in migration. So that's why this bird is here. And it actually is, there actually are a lot of them here. They actually do come through here. They're not rare. They're not the rare, these discoverers of new species or something like that. But because of that, because they are so surprising, they're surprisingly resilient. They're surprisingly present, and they're so surprisingly adaptable, and they kind of carry, I think emotionally and personally too, they fly and they kind of carry that magic of flight with them. I think that's really what drew me to them, is that that no matter where you go, you always have birds.
And they're very fashionable.
Yeah. Oh my God. They're so beautiful. Yeah. They don't, yeah. They're just born ready.
Listen, that's how I
They got
describe
shades and like a fresh haircut and like
feathers.
these feathers. They got wax on them. Like they're so like they pull up differently to the park. You know?
If there was a bird that was going to be fresh out of the barbershop wearing them lemon pepper steppers, it was going to be the cedar waxwing. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Totally.
I tell people that all the time. Be like, this will be the most handsome bird you see on our bird walk today. So take it in.
Yeah, they're incredible. I mean, you could say that with so many birds, though. I mean, they're just they're just incredible.
One day I'm going to get to that for a Halloween costume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Divya, you often talk about surrendering to the enchantment of nature. What does that mean to you? You talked a little bit about being in the city and being from Miami, and like, so how has that expressed itself in your life?
Oh, that's such a great question. Thank you. I think surrendering to that enchantment, there's two ways of doing it. There's this like highly aesthetic, super like dreamy way of like, I'm going to go to a cabin in the woods, sit by the river, drink tea and write in my journal. And that's like, yeah, you can do that sometimes, but I think a lot of people kind of aspire to that. Real life looks like I'm stressed. It's gross outside. The subway smells bad. Like my shoes are dirty. I stepped in something. I'm like, it's crowded. I'm hungry. There's all of these things. So I think surrendering to that enchantment is kind of just like taking a breath, like taking a break of even a minute and like looking for something around you that is there that you're not noticing. And I'll say like one of the favorite experiences I've had recently was with a pigeon. Pigeons also, I love them for that reason, because like if I need a bird fix, I will just I will find a pigeon. They'll be there and I'll be like, all right, let me follow you. Let me see what you're doing. And that will do that. But it could even be, a weed in the sidewalk, a dandelion, or even like, anything small, a tree pit. What's unexpected in this tree pit? We have this tree here. It could even be the dead tree in the tree pit. What is it? What's that dead tree have going on it that you might not have noticed before? So just like finding something that a person didn't put there and then noticing that experience with the pigeon was really, really, really beautiful, because there's this event that I do. So I do the classes out of my studio, but I also collaborate with an artist, Sam Graves. They're an artist, naturalist, birder. They'd be an awesome guest on the pod if you
right. But, on the list.
Awesome. We do this event where I do a taxidermy demonstration, and then afterwards they do a sort of nature drawing workshop with study skins and specimens. So everyone they get to see how the taxidermy is done, and then they get to draw from it and really connect to it and like kind of notice animals in a way they haven't before. So we had a pigeon study skin there, and there was this woman who was like, that's not a pigeon. And we were like, yeah, this is totally a pigeon. And this is a pigeon from New York City that was made into the study skin because the educational collection is based here and it's all local animals. And she was like, no way. They're just so beautiful. This one's just so beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, they're really beautiful. They really are. Yeah. I was like, go look at them for longer. Because with the study skin, you could see all of that green and purple iridescence, how it sits with the gray and all of that. And she was just like, there's no way. We're like, this is totally a pigeon. And it was, our little beautiful sidewalk friends, they're here. So next time, go and look at them for longer. And what you were saying about kids earlier too is like, that is one of my favorite things, is to show them and see how they react to taxidermy, because taxidermy involves death. A lot of people are very, very averse to it. And I get it. Death is not a happy topic, and it's not meant to be. It's meant to be a topic that grounds us and centers us and has us grapple with mortality. But I think kids are actually way better at that than grownups are, because they're not jaded and they haven't had like the messed up biases and judgments and social norms that kind of get us all twisted up as adults. Kids are just pure. They're like, is that dead? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And they're like, did you kill it? No.
Wow.
Oh, okay. How did it die? Well, they're just so frank and honest.
Yeah.
And
that
it's
curiosity.
Beautiful. Yeah. That curiosity is there. That curiosity without judgment is there, but they're also so good at noticing things too. So with that woman with the pigeon, the kid was like, "You're looking at the green part. Look at that purple part back there. Look at the back of the head, that part over there." And they're like, "Look at the wing. This has this has that." And
They
so
got
it's
it
just
all.
like I think kids are actually probably the best at surrendering to that enchantment until it's like, like socialized away in some ways. But yeah, that's really what it is. And I think so much in the cities, like there's so much that we write off as ordinary, but there's so much immense beauty in the ordinary too.
Powerful, just this idea of grounding in the little things and paying attention. Like my grandpa would tell me, just pay attention. It's amazing what we see. And we take for granted the pigeons or the mourning dove. And then you spend some time with that mourning dove and you start seeing some different things. You're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're absolutely stunning. You're spending some time with the pigeons, the rock pigeons, whatever pigeon you might be looking at. And you're like, holy cow. How is this? You look like a painting. You're so beautiful. And that light hits perfectly. And you're just like, they pull up. They got purple like on my shirt.
Yeah. It's incredible.
I love it.
They're so
I love
beautiful.
it. I love that tip. Like, I think that's a great tip of if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're hangry. Jason gets hangry a lot.
All the time.
Where you can just ground, right?
Yeah.
In this small moment of enchantment that's around you. I love that so much.
Yeah.
So,
And it's just so much more applicable to real life, especially these days in this country. Like to be able to say, I need to pause for a minute to just notice this pigeon or this sparrow or this starling. And like, that's kind of really, I think, how a lot of your work makes people feel enchanted, right? I think is the right word. And is that, would you say that that's how you hope people feel? Or is there other things that you want people to feel if they encounter your work for the first time? Because I think I already told you how it hit me. Like, how would you want people to feel?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's how I'd want people to feel. I'd want them to feel, even if they don't feel enchanted yet, because that takes a lot of vulnerability and that takes a lot of, it's like a very personal feeling, which I would love if that happened. I think I just want them to feel changed in some way, just some kind of change, because that's the first step.
Wow.
Yeah, that makes sense. Change,
It's funny. I always tell people, you get people to pay attention, you can get them to care, you get them to care, you can get them to do. And that change is what we're going for. If we can, next thing you know, I bet you that lady that you mentioned, she is looking at pigeons completely different now for the rest of her life.
She's side-eyeing pigeons.
She is changed, right? You changed her forever alongside those little kids. I think that is absolutely fantastic. You mentioned working with George at George Dante's studio, and you're preserving museum collections. How does working with legacy collections shape your sense of responsibility and time, history, memories? How does that work shape you?
It is really, it's really haunting. I think one of the first things I worked on, or one of the first things, I just like one of the first memories of a piece I worked on at George's studio was restoring a passenger pigeon. And, this is an extinct bird, and it has a very, and it's a story that a lot of people know, but also a story maybe a lot of people don't know. A lot of birders know the story. But it's really a haunting reminder, right? Of, there's the only way we can see this bird. There's no flight I can get on. There's no zoo or aviary or place I could go to see this bird. The only way I can see this bird is through this preserved specimen. And while being someone who preserves animals, while that's why we do this, so that people can see animals in a way that doesn't, cause harm or impact or bother natural habitats, going and digging around in places that we just need to let them have their space. This was a different example of that. This is something that is an example, an example of something that could have been avoided. And this is just sort of this like haunted artifact that this is it. Like, your kin doesn't exist living anymore. They're all like this. And I think working with extinct beings and working with beings that are like on that verge of being endangered or threatened or vulnerable or anything, when you think about the fact that there are some animals where more of them exist in a collection or in a lab or in a very nice climate controlled facility somewhere versus in the wild, it really just like ignites your sense of stewardship, but it also it ignites a sense of urgency, but it also ignites kind of like a sense of helplessness too, because you're kind of like, it's heavy.
Yeah, very heavy.
But so it takes you through those two things, and it makes everything very real. That word extinction or endangered, it's not some graphic of an elephant somewhere overlaid with some music. Like it's a lot of times it's this really hard concept for people to grasp because we don't see it in our everyday lives. But, I'm fortunate to have a career where I do see it, but I want people to be able to interact with these specimens and kind of get close to them and experience them in a way so that those words have a true meaning to them, as opposed that those words have like a personal meaning or a personal connection to them, as opposed to just like a concept from, like this abstract concept that's like
Sure.
a 30-second commercial.
I mean, at one point, that bird was the most populated bird in the world.
Yeah.
So we start thinking about the pigeon, the pigeons that you see now in the city. We're not promised to have those birds forever.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we take them for granted. That's how we lost the passenger pigeon. Oh, there's so many of them, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have to worry about that. Wipe them out. So I think, having that mind frame of appreciating all of them, all the birds that we see, and realizing they were here before us. Like, we need to figure out a way that we can ensure, that they have some longevity, that they're here for the next generation of people to really observe them and enjoy their colors and those simple things and some of those moments that we need them most. So I love that correlation of you being able to work on something like that. It is very real, but also it's a reminder that this can happen to every single bird species that we have the honor of seeing. So that is, it really kind of puts into focus like our duty and our responsibilities as just people, and our relationship to these beings around us.
Totally. Absolutely.
So taxidermy, it's you said at the beginning, it's got the entry point for it for a lot of people in their minds is death. And we have our in-color birding here in Philly. We've had events at the Academy of Natural Sciences where they have people demonstrating how they prepare the specimens and get the skins and fix the birds. And, it's more academic. And then we have events where we are going and collecting window strikes. Bird Philly, shout out to them here. They're capturing that data, right? And in both situations, I have people that love birds, but they really struggle with the idea of death. And they are curious, but they emotionally don't know if they could handle it. And I feel like taxidermy is in that same bucket where it gets misunderstood or even stigmatized in some cases. How have you found that space to like demystify it, make it safer, more inclusive for people who are curious, but maybe a little bit hesitant?
Oh, that's a really good question. And probably one I could talk about for like 3 hours. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, I mean, death it's this incredibly personal, it's an incredibly personal thing. Like everyone experiences grief differently. There's also the culture that we're coming at it from. I think a lot of what's really unfortunate about a lot of Western culture is that it has separated a lot of us from our ancestral traditions around death for the sake of assimilation. And that's something that like I grapple with a lot. And it's something that like a lot of people in my own like community of taxidermy friends, it's something that we're always kind of thinking about and talking about of like, oh wow, like I had no idea that my great grandparent, great grand aunt, whatever was, would actually collect feathers and make something out of this, but we just don't know it because like a lot of us might not have a connection to our past. So I think that the topic of death, like combined with all of those other factors, it becomes even more uncomfortable for some people. But even in the conservation world, even with like the most like clinical scientific folks that I've worked with, seeing like there's this taboo of emotions mixing with science, and it's like they should not mix, but they have to. How do you care? How can you like honor your humanity and the like and the birdhood of the bird, or like that this bird was not just a random thing that was in the world. It was an individual with its own life and its own family and stories and experiences that it had. So I think it's really personal how people want to relate to death and how uncomfortable it also makes them. Our mortality is this fact. It's like, it's also, in addition to the cultural stuff, like death is a part of the natural life cycle. It happens to everything. And I'm not one of those people like, well, it happens to everything, let's just get over it and stuff there. I want to dwell on it. I was a goth kid, so still am at heart. So the whole thing about being goth is like, you dwell on this stuff, you dwell on it, but not in a way of doom and gloom. You dwell on it in this way of appreciating how short life is. I think another thing that's removed from a lot of people is rituals around death. Although I work in a studio, I do have my little rituals of approaching my animals every day. I'm like, all right, if I'm working on something new, I'm going to try and like pluck a flower, pluck a plant, like break off a piece of a fern that's, there and stick something living on my workbench to go and work with the dead. But even that, even like ritual around death, like most people aren't connected to their own rituals around death. They're not connected to their own traditions around it. So I think kind of like encouraging that and encouraging someone to find what it means to them is so much more meaningful than me saying like, well, this is how I process it,
Sure.
like this is what I think and this is what you should think. I guess it's so personal, but it's such a truth, death is this like immense truth that it's like we can't deny it. Denying it just makes it denying anything doesn't make it go away. It's not like a text. If you don't just respond to death's text, it doesn't mean you don't die. It's not like that. You can't leave death unread. It's like
you cannot.
It's coming.
One way or the other.
It's one of those. But it's also something that I think should cause us, like the finality of it, and the gravity of it. I think should help us appreciate life more.
Wow.
And help us like
bars.
Help us see. Thank you. Thank you.
Bars and more bars.
Thank you.
It's so good. I can imagine being in one of your classes, right? And being someone that maybe even in the class is still hesitant and still trying to figure out how to navigate that. So like, how are you learning or what are you learning from teaching beginners like that, like maybe influences the way you continue to approach it? Because I imagine that kind of viewpoint, as you're able to tell people in the moment as they're grabbing the scalpel or whatever they're grabbing and like help them through that. How does that impact you over time?
Thank you. I mean, I think the impact is, the best part about teaching is learning, a lot of like, I love when people come to classes because I'm like, cool, I get to learn. And, I love students. They're always there for a good time. And they're always like, hey, we're getting to learn from you. And I'm like, at the end, I'm like, ha ha ha, I actually learned from you. Was that all?
Little did you know.
Little did you know my scheme of learning from you. But it's this beautiful exchange, right? Like, because I'm giving them the skills and the technical knowledge, but then they're giving me like sort of how they feel and what they're coming to this with. And everyone comes to this with something so different. So I think slowness is the one offering that I give everyone. When I was learning taxidermy from like in the very beginning, from a lot of the like some of the early competitions I went to, they were all like, oh, if you're not picking this up, it's not this. If you're not doing this, it's not that. And I'm like, I kind of just am noticing that this is a dead animal in my hands. And it's a skin and there's this. And I kind of just want to sit and process it. I'm also neurodivergent and I process things really slowly. The world often moves faster than I can process it. So taxidermy is like very helpful for that, where I'm like, okay, I can sit here. I can take all the time I need. So I think transferring that and making an environment like that for students where it's like, listen, you don't need to do this fast. I don't get joy if you do this fast. I want you to learn, and you only learn with time and slowness, and you can only process things with slowness. Yeah. I mean, it's the same with birding, right? Like there's the birders who are like, boom, 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 ID. And it's like, and there's the birders who are like, actually, I'm just staring at this moss and this bug. And like, and you're like, oh, wow. Okay. So where's that? Yeah. I guess it's like that slowing down and taking the time to notice and, name what you feel what you feel, and see what happens.
That's a great way. That's great birding advice too, right? Just slow down a little bit. Slow down. Pay attention to what's around you. Listen, be present in the moment. Appreciate those moments of enchantment along the way. I always tell people I am stunned at how fast this hour went. Like, can we do a special like 2-hour episode, Jason. Like, this is crazy.
We might
like,
have to do one of those things where we get a Patreon and do like bonus episodes because we run out of time with a lot of our
this is crazy. But before we let you go, we have to do our lightning round with you.
Oh my God.
Divya. We're gonna throw out a question at you, quick short answers, and we'll see if you survive.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah. Okay.
Favorite animal to work with?
Oh my gosh, birds.
All right, most emotionally challenging piece you've ever created.
Oh my gosh. There could be a bunch, but I'm going to mention one that was fairly recent-ish. It was last year. So I work with the New York City Plover Project. I'm on the board there, and I'm a longtime volunteer as well. And last year I had the opportunity to work with a piping plover, a parent and a chick. And not only was this a species that I'm just so passionate about on our beaches, also the beach that they're from is part of a gateway national recreation area, which is basically like a part of the national park system, which a lot of people don't know. We have national park system in New York City. We have that here. So that's how I was connected to this bird, because the queer beach is also part of the system. So I was like on the queer beach and was like, okay, oh my gosh, this endangered bird nests here too. My goodness, like this is a place for gathering of all kinds of like vulnerable and special beings, human and non-human. But anyhow, this bird, not only was it the species that I'm so connected to, it was also from this gateway system. So this was like a gateway bird. It was like, I was like, it's one of ours. Yeah. This bird was also frozen since 2001. And I worked on this bird in 2025. So it's in the freezer these birds both were in the freezer for about 24, 25 years, which made them very technically challenging too.
I can feel it. I can feel that one because I got my lifer piping plover in 2025, and it took me all the way out. I was just like, I can't believe this little thing. Like, look how cute you are. I can imagine seeing a baby too, seeing a chick. Most meaningful commission you have received?
Oh man, I feel like, oh my gosh. I'll give you a general answer for that one. I think oh my gosh, it's so
the lightning round.
I know it's a lightning round. I know it gets me. It got me. I'll just give a general answer for that one. I'll say when people come to me with pets, it's very meaningful.
Sure.
Well, the conservation work is really, really meaningful too. I think when someone comes to me with their companion, there's just a different level of like grief and vulnerability and an exchange that's involved where you're preserving a relationship and a memory as opposed to preserving something purely for an academic reason. This is
Sure. All right, next one. One object in nature that always inspires you.
Ooh.
You can't say birds. You already
I can't say birds. Okay. I'm going to say moss and, is it epiphytes? Like things that grow on trees?
Yeah.
I'll say mosses, lichens, epiphytes, those.
Awesome. A museum you love visiting?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. I'm gonna say the Field Museum, because I went there for the first time last year and they did an exhibit that was really, really amazing in the early 2020s. Did an exhibit on Carl Cotton, who is one of the few Black taxidermists remembered by history, and he has a whole diorama in there. He worked on a lot of stuff in there, but he has a whole diorama in there that has a beautiful plaque memorializing his work and legacy and all of that. I'll say that.
That's incredible. Your go-to source of creative inspiration?
Go-to source of creative inspiration. I'm gonna say walking around the cemetery near my studio, Greenwood Cemetery. It's a great birding cemetery too, but there's always something there that I don't notice.
Love it. Yeah. All right, we talked a little bit about this, but one misconception about taxidermy you wish would disappear.
Oh, that could be so many. I would say the crudeness and the brutishness that people conceive it as crude or brutish or domineering. That misconception, I wish would disappear.
All right, last one. You almost made it. What brings you the most joy in your work?
What brings me the most joy in my work is the connections that I make to the animals, the connections that people make afterwards, and the ones we all make with each other.
So fantastic.
Love this so much. You survived. You survived the lightning round. Divya, this has been so beautiful, so engaging, so joyful, so thoughtful, emotional, like everything. Like I just like always the emotions in this episode I still got the zoomies. Like I don't know what to do with myself right now. You got a lot going on. Are there any projects or ideas that you're excited to explore next? If somebody's listening and they're feeling drawn to science, art, and conservation, but don't know where to start, what would you tell them?
I would say, well, I mean, I'm excited about, like, we're starting the year, so I have a lot of like teaching events coming up, which I'm very excited about. I'm also making time to do artwork, like not just commissions and stuff. I'm making intentional time to do artwork, so that's what I'm excited about. And for someone interested in conservation and they don't know where to start, I would say just start small, start somewhere, go outside and notice something, because we need everybody. We need everyone. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to have a fancy degree, fancy equipment. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to love and notice something, tell someone about it. That's a great place to start.
I like
that.
Fantastic.
I like that.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Divya, thank you so much for sharing your time, your perspective, and your generosity with us. Your ability your ability to blend science, style, and wonder is deeply inspiring. And we are grateful for the space you create for curiosity, learning, and connection. This has been a fantastic episode. We can't wait to get it out to folks. And so thank you again. And to all of our homies out there, keep finding that bird joy. And remember that bird joy is for everyone.
Even you. Bye.
Thank you.
All right.